Morning. Just a short announcement to inform that the Commission will reconvene a little later this morning because both Mr. Martinez, member of the Commission, and the first witness for this morning, Mr. Herrera, have been delayed owing to some traffic mishap on the Western Highway this morning. We expect that they will be here shortly, and we will reconvene as soon as they're both available. morning, everybody. We're reconvening the Commission on Inquiry into the Sale of Government Assets. The next witness is Mr. Jovencio Peter Herrera. Mr. Herrera, we've put an oath on the table there for you. If you can, is there a Bible up? If you take the Bible in your right hand and read the oath to us, please.
Swear that the testimony I shall give today before the Commission in this matter in question shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. Mr. Herrera, could you state your full name for the record and your address, please?
Jovencio Peter Herrera from Roaring Creek Village.
Roaring Creek Village. Mr. Herrera, the sale of a vehicle from the government of Belize was approved to you on 4th November 2020.
Yes, sir.
Yes. It was a 2020 Toyota Tacoma that was in use by Mr. Hugo Pat.
Say again, sir.
I said it was a 2020 Toyota Tacoma that was in use by Minister Hugo Pat.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Are you familiar with that Tacoma?
Yes, sir.
What can you tell us about it?
Well, I assisted Mr. Pat in acquiring that vehicle, sir.
Have you ever had possession of that vehicle?
No, sir.
Have you ever driven it?
No, sir.
Do you know what it looks like?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
From the outside, yes.
From the outside. What about from the inside?
No, sir.
Never been inside it?
Never been inside.
All right. Mr. Hugo Pat told us that you loaned him the money to pay for that Tacoma. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
How did that loan come about?
Well, me and he had a conversation in a late October. They said me want to acquire the vehicle, but they never had the full finance to get it. And I tell him I want to see if I could assist him. And that's how.
What were the terms of the loan you agreed to provide to Mr. Pat?
He told me verbally, well, we made a verbal agreement that within 3 months he would have paid me back.
Any interest?
No, sir.
Interest-free loan?
Interest free.
And it was to be repaid in a single lump sum within 3 months?
Yes, sir.
When you agreed to make this loan to Mr. Pat, did you have the $65,000 available?
No, sir. As I said, I never make a promise. I said I want to see if I could get it.
And there came a time when you got it?
Yes, sir.
How did you get it?
Well, to somebody where I work for, I gone to them and asked them to borrow it from them.
So you decided to borrow it so that you can lend it to Mr. Pat?
Yes, sir.
The entire $65,000?
Yes, sir.
Whom did you borrow it from?
From Mr. Kelvin Lee, sir.
And what were the terms of that loan?
It's a verbal agreement that I should pay him back within 3 months.
Pay back within 3 months. Any interest?
No, sir.
Did you tell Mr. Lee what the money was needed for? that you would be lending it to Minister Hugo Pat?
No, sir, I not tell him. He never did ask me, so I never disclosed that to him.
And did you repay that loan to Mr. Lee?
Yes, sir.
When did you repay the loan?
Well, sometime in January of this year, sir.
You sure it wasn't in December of last year?
No, sir.
How was it repaid?
In cash.
You delivered the cash to Mr. Lee?
Yes, sir.
And from where did you get the cash?
Well, I make an arrangement to Mr. Ivan Liva for me. Make somebody sell the vehicle for me. And sometime in like late January, he informed me that the vehicle, he had the cash, got the vehicle myself, and he carried the Roaring Creek for me.
He took the cash to Roaring Creek to you?
Yeah.
And how did you get the cash to Mr. Lee?
Well, I bring it, I solicit it to the office.
Did anyone witness the delivery of this cash?
No, sir.
Did you secure a receipt from Mr. Lee in order to prove that you've repaid him?
No, sir.
Did he give you a receipt?
No, sir.
The vehicle was sold for the same amount of money that you paid, that was paid for it?
Say again, sir.
The vehicle was sold for the same amount of money that was paid for it?
When I inform him about to sell the vehicle, I tell him I want back the money where I paid for it.
And did you get back the money you paid for it?
Yes, sir. I got back $65,000.
So, Mr. Herrera, what was the purpose of the entire transaction? If Mr. Pat didn't want the vehicle,
Well, and just
he borrows, let me recount it to you. Mr. Pat applies to buy for the vehicle from the Prime Minister. He asks for a favor. The Prime Minister agrees to sell it to him. The price is fixed at $65,000. The approval is issued to you. You agree to lend Mr. Pat the $65,000 to pay for the vehicle. The vehicle is paid for, and within weeks is resold for the same $65,000 that was paid for it. Is that all correct?
yes, sir.
Yes. Well, what was the purpose of that whole exercise?
Well, Mr. Pat never had the finance, as I explained.
Yes, but he got the vehicle and then he gave back the money.
No,
So he ended up with no vehicle and all the money went right back to where it was supposed to be.
He informed me he may have family issues with some COVID in his family, and he can't deal with the vehicle again. So,
But he dealt with it. He borrowed the money and he paid it back. Didn't he?
who from who?
Mr. Pat?
He not pay me back no money.
He didn't pay you back any money?
No, sir.
Who paid you back the money?
Well, the guy was sell the vehicle. When I gone do the transfer with him at Belmopan, I tell her if he couldn't get in touch with me, well, I trust Mr. Ivan because I do a lot of work for him.
Right. Who is Ivan Liver?
Well, I know the man as a man who work the lands department. I own an apartment complex at Belmopan where I usually do maintain and work for him also.
And Mr. Liver arranged the sale of the vehicle on your behalf or on Mr. Pat's behalf?
On my behalf, sir.
On your behalf. Was the vehicle yours or Minister Pat?
Well, the purpose when I get it in my name, it was to go to Mr. Pat, but he informed me he couldn't deal with it again. So I think the vehicle was mine because it was in my name, you know. They transferred it in my name.
But you loaned Mr. Pat money to buy the vehicle.
Yes, but that's
so it was Mr. Pat's money that bought the vehicle, wasn't it?
No, it was mine.
But you loaned it to him.
Yes,
when you loaned it to him, it became his
agreement that he would pay me back.
Yes. And when you loaned the money to him, the money became Mr. Pat's money. Isn't that so?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no, sir, but we had an agreement that I would hold the vehicle in my name as collateral
if he didn't
until
pay you
he'd
back.
Pay me back.
But he paid you back.
He didn't pay me back.
So you sold the vehicle because Minister Pat did not pay you back.
Yes, sir.
He was supposed to pay you back within 3 months. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
Did the 3 months expire when you decided to sell the vehicle?
No, sir, but he informed me he couldn't afford the vehicle again, and I never had no use of the vehicle. I just made do it as a favor for him, and I want to recover the money back because I made make a verbal agreement for pay it back in 3 months, and I don't want to breach a contract like that because that's somebody will trust me and I work for.
Yes. So basically, after the loan was given to Mr. Pat, and after you borrowed the money from Mr. Lee to provide this money to Minister Pat, Minister Pat called off the arrangement.
Well, I won't say call it off. I say get in a Lee financial thing, as he explained. He may go through difficulties.
Yes, but that's the reason for what he did. But what did he do? He told you he doesn't want the loan again, just sell the vehicle.
He just tell me he couldn't afford the vehicle, and me and the man are friends, so I never had no feelings. I like to try those.
But he had already afforded the vehicle. The vehicle was paid for.
Yes, the vehicle was paid for. But
so what he had then was a loan. Are you saying he couldn't afford to repay you the loan?
Yes, but the loan was me that provided the money.
Yes, and he was supposed to pay it back.
Yes,
so Minister Pat told you he wouldn't be able to pay back the loan?
Yes, he informed me that he couldn't pay for the vehicle as he was going through financial troubles with his family. But the vehicle
had been paid for. The receipt is issued by the government. The vehicle was paid for. It was paid for by Mr. Lee.
Yes, but on my behalf.
Yes, on your behalf. So the vehicle is paid for, the receipt is issued, vehicle is paid for. At that point in time, what there is a loan outstanding from Minister Pat to you.
I wouldn't say so, because the intention was not to make no profit or nothing like that. All I was helping out someone.
Yes, but you were helping him out with a loan which had to be repaid.
Yes, but we made a verbal agreement. The man told me he was going through some financial trouble. Me and the man is friends, and when me and you are friends, I take that as a...
So you and Minister Pat are friends. How did you come to meet your friend, Minister Pat?
Well, I do a lot of work for Mr. Ivan, and he used to stay at one of the apartment buildings.
So you met him through your presence at Mr. Ivan's apartment building?
Yes, because I do a lot of work there. So
Yes,
I do
and when did you
maintenance.
meet him?
Well, I'd say, let's see, like in 2019.
In 2019. And what month would that have been?
What? Repeat the question, sir.
What month in 2019 did you meet Minister Pat?
Well, I say sometime around the middle.
Wrong the middle.
Yeah.
And within 3 months, Minister Pat were asking you for loans of $65,000?
3 months, sir. In 2019, I met the guy.
Yes, in 2019.
That was a whole year and a change after.
All right. And so within the next 2 years, Minister Pat asked you for a loan of $65,000 to pay for a vehicle?
He never asked me, sir. I offered it to him that I want to see if I could help him.
You offered it. How did you know he needed $65,000 to pay for a vehicle?
Well, as I said, me and he had conversation.
He asked you for a loan?
He didn't ask me. I offered it to him.
He didn't ask you for a loan. You just volunteered it to him.
I told him I will see what I could do and see if I could get the finances. So
Yes,
he
I
can get
understand
the-
that. But listen to my question carefully. Minister Pat did not ask you for a loan. You volunteered the loan to him.
Yes, sir.
How did you know he needed a loan to buy the vehicle?
Well, I tell him, boss, when I got one day, you got one nice vehicle. The man say him want acquire it, but you know got the finances right now. So
And this was at the premises of Mr. Liva's apartment building where you worked?
yes, sir.
Where you worked as maintenance?
Yes, sir.
So you were working your maintenance job at the time when you saw Minister Pat in his nice vehicle?
Yes, sir. I always gotta go work. And me and the man always talk, you know.
What's the basis? You're employed by Mr. Liva to do maintenance there?
Well, anytime the man want to do maintenance, he call me and I go do it for him.
So it's done on a contract basis?
I'm a contractor, sir. But
You're,
time to time, the man call me for the different maintenance pine building.
what's the value of your contracts for a year as contractor?
Say again, sir.
The value of your contracts as contractor. How much money do you make in a year?
Well, depends, sir, at how many jobs I get.
Yes, and in a typical year, how much would that be?
From where?
From all of them. You file business tax returns as a contractor.
Well,
How much income did you report to the government last year?
I won't say, I will not file no taxes, sir, because most of my contracts are verbal and I don't work all year round. That's when the weather good or when I have jobs.
But you go around volunteering $65,000 loan to ministers of government. Is that so?
Well,
That's what
I
you
tell
have
the
us
man,
believe?
I may want to say, if I could help her, I gone out, I seek the help,
Yes.
and I get the help, and I help them.
You volunteered a $65,000 loan to the Minister of Natural Resources.
Say again, sir.
You volunteered a $65,000 loan to the Minister of Natural Resources, Mr. Hugo Pat.
I would say I volunteer it because then me and the man have a conversation. I say if I tell the man I want to see if I could get a loan, I gone out there and I
Yes.
get it. And
So the answer
inform the
is-
man I had gotten it and I helped the man as a friend.
Yes, as his friend who you had met the year before, because he lives in
A
an
year-
apartment
a
for
year
Mr.
and
Liva.
change, sir. I met the guy. huh?
Year and change,
Yeah.
because he lived in an apartment belonging to Mr. Ivan Liva, and you did maintenance work on the building.
Well, I not say because he live in the apartment in
No, I
Mr.
said
Liva.
that's how you
do
met
it for
him.
her as a friend that we become over the past year and change, not because of where he lived.
I asked you, how did the friendship arise between you and Minister
Well,
Pat?
as I say, I used to go work for the man. Sometimes I go work in the apartment where the man stay. The man say, then go out. I don't trustworthy person. They never had nothing missing, and me and the man start become friends from there.
Yes. So, let me recap that for you, and you tell me if it's right or wrong. you met Minister Pat and became friends with him because he lived in an apartment building in a complex belonging to Mr. Ivan Liver, in respect of which you did maintenance work from time to time. Is that correct?
That's a half of what you just said that are true, sir, because it's
All
not
right.
only because...
Which half is not true?
Because you said we only became friends because he live in the apartment building it. Well, I meet the guy, we become friends not because he work there. Say maybe the man's spirit take me and I take him. We had conversation and we became friends.
All right, so your spirits took each other and you became friends. But the opportunity to meet the Minister of Natural Resources arose from your presence at the apartment complex at which he lived. Is that so?
Yes, sir. At that time, I didn't even know the man now a minister.
Yes. And after that, you learned that he was a minister?
Afterwards, sir.
Yeah. You noticed that the fancy vehicle had government plates on it?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So, there came a point when Minister Pat informed you that he was not in a position to repay your loan. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And at that point, you decided to sell the vehicle.
Yes, sir. To recover back the money to pay the loan where I had gotten.
Who had the vehicle at that time?
Well, as far as I concern, the vehicle, Medina Minister Pat hand.
It was in a, you sure it wasn't in Mr. Ivan Liver's hand?
Well, afterwards, Mr. Pat tell me when he never want a vehicle, he informed me that Mr. Liver had the vehicle orange walk. So
Mr. Liver had it, so Mr. Pat gave the vehicle to Mr. Liver?
I don't know what happened. If he assist and carry it up there, I don't think he give him. I think he just do a favor and drive it the orange walk or something like that.
So he did a favor for who? Favor for you or for Mr.
Well,
Liver?
I said for Mr. Hugo, not for me.
Oh, you're talking about Mr. Liver. Mr. Liver did Mr. Hugo a favor and drove the vehicle to Orange Walk.
I'm not sure. I just suggest something, sir, because
And is that
I
your
know
suggestion?
when Mr. Pat informed me I want a vehicle, when he informed me same time, Mr. Ivan had the vehicle in Orange Walk.
All right, so Mr. Ivan had the vehicle in Orange Walk.
Yes, sir.
And who made the arrangements for the sale of the vehicle?
Well, I called Mr. Liver. One time Mr. Pat tell me he don't want a vehicle anymore. And I asked him if he don't know who want buy it. Well, he said he want to get back to me. The day after, he called me and said he don't know who want buy. He don't know who want buy it, but he have somebody who could assist me in selling the vehicle.
And he told you who that somebody was?
Well, I tell him, because that's somebody where I trust and thing. As I say, I work for the man and thing. I tell the man, well, I could go ahead because all I want to do is recover back my money for pay back the money that I have gotten.
So you authorized him to make arrangements for the sale of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
And you fixed the price for the vehicle?
I tell him already $65,000 back I want where I got in the vehicle. No, I just want to recover back my money.
You mean recover the money that you loaned to Minister Pat?
The money that I borrowed, sir.
The money that you borrowed and loaned to Mr. Pat. It's the same money we're talking about.
Yes,
it's not
sir.
different money,
Same
is it?
money.
Yes. So, the answer to my question is yes?
I would have said yes. Sir, yes to the money that I borrowed.
Yes to the money. What does that mean, Mr. Herrera?
That means I borrowed the money. And it
You
was a
borrowed the
loan
money from
for
Mr. Lee,
me.
and you loaned the money to
I didn't
Minister
loan
Pat.
Mr. Pat. I assisted him.
You assisted him with a loan.
Sir, when that vehicle was transferred, it was transferred to me in my name.
You
So I
assisted
thought
Minister
that
Pat
vehicle
with a
became
loan
mine
of
as a-
$65,000.
I promise.
Did you
made
or did
verbal
you not
agreement
assist
with the
Mr.
man. I assisted the man in acquiring the vehicle that he would pay me back.
Did you assist, listen to the question, did you assist Minister Pat with a loan of $65,000 to pay for the vehicle?
Well, I would have said yes, because then
I would have said yes,
Yeah.
no. In fact, that's what you've been telling
Yeah,
us since you
yes,
got here this
yes.
morning. So I don't know what's your hesitation in admitting to it.
because I thought it, you were saying like I get a man cash. No.
I didn't ask you how you paid him. You have confirmed to us, and I'm giving you the opportunity again to correct me if I'm wrong, that you arranged to provide a loan to Mr. Pat of the $65,000 to pay for the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Yes. That you in turn went to Mr. Kelvin Lee and borrowed the $65,000 so that you can lend it to Minister Pat.
I went to Mr. Lee so that I could acquire the funds so that I could pay for the vehicle.
You didn't borrow the money from Mr. Lee?
That's why I told you, sir, I borrowed it from the guy.
Well, this is what I asked you to confirm. It's as simple yes.
I'm saying yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So you borrowed the money from Mr. Lee to lend to Minister Pat to pay for the vehicle. Minister Pat then comes to you and tells you he doesn't want the vehicle, or he can't afford to repay you the loan. Is that so?
Yes, sir.
When did he do that?
Sometime, I'd say, in late November
In late
last year.
November. This is after the elections, after the general elections.
I would figure, yes, sir, because election on May 11th, and after that.
Yes. So he comes to you after the elections. He's no longer Minister Hugo Pat. He tells you he won't be able to repay the loan,
Yes, sir.
and that he would cause the vehicle to be delivered to Mr. Liver.
Well, I don't say cause it. He tell me the vehicle was there. I don't know how it get there.
Okay, that Mr. Liver, he told you that Mr. Liver has the vehicle.
Yes, sir. He just informed me that Mr. Liver had the vehicle already.
Yes. And then you contacted Mr. Liver,
Yes, sir.
and you made arrangements for Mr. Liver to sell the vehicle.
Well, he said me and see what he could do. The next day he called me and
No.
said, I know who want to buy it.
Did you make arrangements for Mr. Liver to sell the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Mr. Liver said he could make arrangements with somebody else to sell it. He couldn't sell it, but he knew other people that could find a buyer.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And these other people were Prestige Auto Sales.
I don't quite understand what you said, sir.
Prestige Auto Sales in Belize City. They were the ones who sold the vehicle, were they not?
Well, I know a man, Mr. Said, assisted us in selling the vehicle.
The vehicle wasn't on the used car lot for Prestige Auto Sales and advertised by them for sale on their website.
Well, I don't know how the place name, sir. All I know that Mr. Said Perdomo assisted us in selling the vehicle.
So you made arrangements with Mr. Liver, who made arrangements with Said Perdomo, who then made arrangements with Prestige Auto Sales.
Well, sir, I don't know what they gone through to sell the vehicle or what they do. All I know, the guy.
Who was the vehicle sold to Mr. Herrera?
Well, that I don't know, sir.
Where did the money come from that you received the $65,000 cash for?
Well, I get it from Mr. Live, as I said, sir.
And who did he get it from?
Well, you know, inform me who get it from. I feel like he get
So
it
you
from
don't
the
know,
person
you
that
don't
sell
know where the
vehicle.
$65,000 came from? You don't know that the $65,000 came from the sale of a vehicle?
Well, the man get a vehicle for sale. I can transfer the vehicle to the said.
So the vehicle was sold. But how do you know the $65,000 is connected to that sale?
Well, I no guarantee that the man tell me that. I trust the man.
Oh, that's what Mr. Liver told you?
Yes, sir.
Or was that Mr. Perdomo?
No, Mr. Live, sir.
Mr. Liver, you had dealings with Mr. Perdomo?
The only time I had dealings with the guy that when we gonna transfer the vehicle. We made it do an open transfer, they didn't want to, so I had to put the vehicle in his name.
Yes. So he was only acting as an intermediary.
I'd say, yes.
Did he tell you who he was selling the vehicle to?
No, sir.
Do you know who the vehicle was sold to?
No, sir.
Do you know who paid for it?
No, sir.
You know how much they paid for it?
Well, I get back my 65,000. I want, sir.
I know that's what you wanted, but do you know how much the vehicle was sold for?
No, sir. As I said, that never interests me. I just want back my money.
You sure you never get back just 59,000?
I get $65,000, sir.
You counted it?
I counted it. It was in a brown envelope. When the guy brought it to me, I checked it.
Yes. And
Make sure it was correct. Put it back in the envelope. Drove to Belize City, to Euphrates Avenue,
Yes.
on where Mr. Lee office is, and gave him back the money.
You mean paid him back the money? Did Mr. Lee ask you where you got the money from?
No, sir.
Do you know what he did with the money?
No, sir.
No, sir. Okay. Mr. Herrera, the government of Belize, Mr. Vicente, directed the approval for the sale of the vehicle which Minister Hugo Pat sought to you. How was the decision? Did you ask him for the approval to be made in your name?
Well, we met who, Mr. Hugo?
No, Mr. Vicente.
No, sir. I never got no talking in Mr. Vicente about the vehicle.
So who directed the government of Belize to put the approval in your name?
Well, that part there, I don't know how the government work that way, there, sir.
You
I know when time.
Did you receive this letter? The one dated 4th November 2020 from Mr. Vicente.
No, sir.
You never received it?
No, sir.
Would you like to see it to make sure?
Sir, well, it don't really matter because, you know, the vehicle was already sold to me and I
No, I'm talking
sold it
about
back.
the approval
Yes,
to you
but
for the sale
the
to you of the
approval,
vehicle.
Sir, all I was do verbally inform that the vehicle I could have paid for the vehicle in my name and got it
Who
transferred.
verbally informed you of that?
Well, Mr. Hugo.
Mr. Hugo did. So would it have been Mr. Hugo who asked that the letter issue in your name?
Well, I don't know where he has. He informed me here. When me and he had a verbal conversation about his vehicle and the acquiring of this vehicle, he said, if you guarantee that he can pay me back, he don't mind the vehicle going in my name, but he say if it could happen. And after that, he informed me and said, well, it could happen, so I acquired the money and we pay for the vehicle and I gonna get it transferred in my name.
Yes. But remember, the money was to lend to Mr. Pat.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So that Mr. Pat could buy the vehicle.
Yes, but as I say, I'm gonna need some kind of collateral. Which I
What does
hold
that
on
mean,
to.
Mr. Herrera?
Well,
What's the purpose of
something where I know I could get back my money should in case anything go wrong, sir.
collateral? You mean so that you could sell it and get back your money
Yes, sir.
if something went wrong?
Yes, sir.
And that is what happened.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have no further questions. Mr. Blake? You good? All right. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Herrera.
Sir.
Um,
My pleasure, sir.
Yes, morning, Mr. Liver. Mr. Liver, there's an oath in that, should be an oath in that
Yeah, on the read?
envelope on the desk.
Okay.
Could you take the Bible in your right hand and repeat
Sure.
those words for me, please?
I, Ivan Leva, swear affirm that the testimony I shall give today before the commission in the matters in question shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
Thank you. Could you state for the record your full name and your address, please?
Ivan Leva, and I live in Orange Walk, Evergreen Street.
And what is your profession, Mr. Liver?
Sir, I am the Deputy Commissioner of the National Estate Section at the Ministry of Natural Resources.
You were the Deputy Commissioner while Mr. Hugo Pat was Minister of Natural Resources?
For a period of time, I became the Deputy Commissioner, but before that post, it was the National Estate Officer.
All right, well, let's get the timing right.
Yeah.
From when were you National Estate Officer, and when did you become Deputy Commissioner?
I was acting National Estate Officer between 2016 to 2018, and then got the post with the National Estate Officer between 2018 to 2019 and 2020.
When did Mr. Hugo Pat become the Minister of Natural Resources?
If I'm not mistaken, between 2018 and 2020.
Your appointment as Deputy Commissioner coincides with Mr. Hugo Pat being appointed Minister of Natural Resources?
No, the vacancy was open, and I was granted under consideration.
The vacancy was open when? I'm talking timing.
From 2015, that vacancy had been open.
But it was not filled till
It was not filled.
2018.
Yeah.
It was filled before or after Mr. Hugo Pat became Minister of Natural Resources?
It was done after.
It was
After.
after.
Yeah.
So it was Mr. Hugo Pat as Minister of Natural Resources who appointed you Deputy Commissioner of Lands?
Was the public service, sir.
Yes, and Minister Pat played no role in this appointment whatsoever. It
I
was
have
the
no-
public service who did all of it.
I have no knowledge of that, sir.
You have no knowledge of it.
Yeah. Everything is done through the CEO.
How
and not
long
the minister.
have you been a public officer?
From 2013.
Yes, and you said everything is done through the CEO.
CEO. Yes, sir.
And the CEO answers to whom?
He answers to the minister.
To the minister. So you would have expected that Mr. Hugo Pat made a recommendation or at least approved the recommendation to the Public Service Commission for your appointment?
I believe if I was doing a great job, sir, I would have been recognized for that.
Well, I'm not asking you why. I'm
Well,
just asking you what happened.
Yeah, I believe that my job speaks on its own, and I applied like anybody in the
So
industry.
Mr. Hugo Pat recognized the benefits of employing you as a sterling employee and promoting you to the position of Deputy Commissioner.
I'm not aware that the minister can promote. I'm sure that the public service does the promotion.
Yes, and the minister has nothing to do with it whatsoever. That's what you lead us to believe?
I never communicated with the minister in regards to that position. It was done through an application. The CEO reviewed it.
And let me listen to my question. And the minister has nothing whatsoever to do with that appointment. Is that what you're leading us to believe?
I wouldn't know, sir.
You don't know if the minister had anything at all to do with your appointment.
No, sir, I wouldn't know.
Would you agree with me that you went above and beyond the call of duty to serve the minister?
I went above and beyond to serve the people of Belize, sir.
And it was in serving the people of Belize that you arranged the purchase and sale of Minister Pat's vehicle?
I didn't do it on behalf of Minister Pat.
You
It was
did it
done
for the
under-
people of Belize?
No, it was done for Mr. Herrera. He was the one who contacted me, not Minister Pat. Can I provide you the details on it, sir?
I am asking you the questions, Mr. Liver. You answer the questions. Hmm? That's how the process works.
Okay, sir.
So, you did not go above and beyond the call of duty to assist Mr. Hugo Pat with the selling of the vehicle.
No, sir.
You were assisting Mr. Herrera with the sale of the vehicle.
Yes, sir.
What is your relationship with Mr. Herrera?
Well, I have an apartment complex where Mr. Herrera is a contractor, and we have had several problems in the building. And Mr. Herrera does a lot of the fixtures in that building.
What's the value of the contracts you have with Mr. Herrera during any given year?
Well, it's not between like any given big contracts. It's just the maintenance and leaking of pipes. I mean, maintenance.
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm asking you what's the value of it.
Well, depends. Sometimes it's around $250 per service.
So how much do you pay him in a year?
I can't recall, sir, because it's not a lot.
Not a lot.
Yeah.
Can you give us an idea what not a lot is?
I would say probably like 4 times a year we would call him.
And it's about $250 each time per year?
Yes, sir.
So you give him contracts totaling about $1,000 a year.
Yes, sir.
You and Mr. Herrera are friends?
I would consider him a friend, yes.
How long have you known him?
I have known him for, if I'm not mistaken, 2 years, 2 years.
Minister Pat stayed in an apartment in your building?
Yes, sir, he did.
So apart from being your boss, he was also your tenant?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware that when Mr. Herrera asked you to help him to sell the 2020 Tacoma, that it was the Tacoma that was approved for sale to Minister Hugo Pat that was to be sold?
Yes, sir.
You were aware that Mr. Herrera made a loan of $65,000 to Minister Hugo Pat?
No, sir, at the moment I didn't.
You were aware that Mr. Herrera borrowed the $65,000 from Mr. Kelvin Lee?
No, sir, I wasn't.
You were aware that Minister Pat indicated to Mr. Herrera that he wasn't in a position to repay the loan?
No, sir, I wasn't.
You were aware that Mr. Herrera was selling the vehicle in order to recover the proceeds of the loan so that he can repay his own loan to Mr. Lee?
Mr. Herrera reached out to me asking to see if I had the vehicle. I mentioned to him that yes, I had
Hang
the
on,
vehicle.
stop there. He reached out to you asking to see if you had the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
So he didn't know where the vehicle was?
I wouldn't know, sir.
Why would he ask you where the vehicle is?
What happened is the beginning of 9th of November, Minister Pat had reached out to me and asked if I was in Belmopan working.
Minister Pat reached out to you and
Yes.
asked if you were working in Belmopan.
Belmopan.
Okay.
And I said yes. He asked if I could do him a favor. I said sure. He was still the minister at the time. And when he asked me if I could drive the vehicle from the ministry to Orange Walk, and he would have made arrangements to pick up the vehicle from me in Orange Walk, I said sure. When I got into the vehicle, I saw the title and it had Mr. Juvencio Herrera's name on in the title. It was there already.
The title was where in the vehicle?
It was right on the dashboard.
Right in the open.
Yeah.
The vehicle, you collected it from the
It was parked at the ministry.
Ministry of Natural
Yes.
Resources parking lot,
Yes, sir.
and it was sitting there with the title on the dashboard
Well,
in the
you see
name
where
of Mr.
the driver's section is for the park and stuff? It was right there.
All right, you mean the center console?
Yeah, where like the cup holders?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get the story right. I'm going to
Okay.
take it one step at a time. So the vehicle was sitting in the parking lot for the Ministry of Natural Resources, and a certificate of title in the name of Mr. Juvencio Herrera was sitting on the console in the
Yes.
open in the vehicle. Minister Pat asked you for a favor
Yes, sir.
to drive the vehicle to Orange Walk so that he can collect it at some later date.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
When did Minister Pat ask for this favor?
It was around the 9th of November.
So this was just immediately prior to the general
Prior to General
elections.
elections. The favor
he-
was asked, excuse me, sir, the favor was asked on the 9th, but I did not drive the vehicle until the 10th.
The day before the elections.
Yeah.
And you did this as a favor to the minister.
Yes, sir.
Yes. So when I asked you if you went above and beyond the call of duty to assist the minister, you didn't recollect this favor.
Sir, he was the Minister of Natural Resources at the time. and-
Yes, but he can't direct you to drive. You're not a driver.
But I'm doing a favor, sir. It's nothing wrong.
Yes, so the favor is above and beyond the call of duty. It's not part of your duties to drive the minister's car to Orange Walk.
No.
I'm not fighting with you, I'm just recounting what it is.
No. Well, I would take that, yes, I did a favor for the minister to drive the vehicle.
Yes.
That one time.
And the vehicle remained in your possession from the 10th November
Yes, sir.
until it was sold.
Not until it was sold.
So somebody collected the vehicle from you at some point.
Yes, somebody collected the vehicle from me.
Who collected it from you and when?
Mr. Said Perdomo. He collected it around the beginning of January.
So the vehicle sat in Orange Walk in your possession from the 10th November until the beginning of January.
January. No, not the beginning. It was beginning December, sorry, sir. The beginning of December.
Beginning of December.
December, yes, sorry. My apologies.
How did Mr. Saib Perdomo come to collect the vehicle?
I was not at home. I was in Belmopan working, and I made arrangements for him to pick up the vehicle.
You made the arrangements for him to
Yeah,
collect.
pick up the vehicle.
What arrangements were made?
I just told him where to pick it up, and he went to just simply collect the vehicle keys.
But didn't you also make arrangements for him to sell it?
Yes, sir.
Yes? What were those arrangements?
Minister Pat had reached out to me telling me that Mr. Jovensa would have collected the vehicle from me because I was concerned that the vehicle was still in my possession.
I thought it was Mr. Pat who was to collect the vehicle from you.
Yes, I thought Mr. Pat would have collected the vehicle, but I got a call from Minister Pat stating that Mr. Jovensa would have picked up the vehicle from me.
Okay.
Mr. Jovensa reached out to me and stated that, I think he reached out to me in the ending of November as well, and stated that he would have...
Hang on, let's get the timing right.
Yeah.
He reached out to you in the end November.
Yes, sir.
And what did he ask you to do?
He asked me if I had the vehicle. I said, yes, I had the vehicle here. And then he said that he no longer, he wants to sell the vehicle if I knew of anyone who wanted to buy it. I said, no, but I could look at someone who probably...
And he wanted to sell the vehicle from the end of November? Are you sure that wasn't in December?
No, it was the end of November, sir.
End of November.
He had intentions of wanting to sell it end of November.
From the end of November.
Yes, sir.
All right. So, end of November, he tells you he wants to sell the vehicle. And what other instructions did he give?
He said, I told him, well, I didn't know of anyone who wanted to buy a vehicle at that time. And I said, but I can probably check on someone who I know deals with vehicles. And I know Mr. Said Perdomo. And I asked him, and he said yes. But at the time, I asked Mr. Jovensa how much he wanted. He said he just wanted it back in 65,000. And that's what I translated to Mr. Said Perdomo.
So Mr. Perdomo is free to sell the vehicle for whatever he can get for it. And he was to pay $65,000 to Mr. Herrera.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Perdomo eventually sold the vehicle?
Yes, sir, he did.
When did he sell it?
He had called me around the 16th of January, informing me that he had found a buyer for the vehicle, and that's when I gave him Mr. Jovencio's number for them to do the transactions.
So he didn't tell you that it was Prestige Auto Sales who found a buyer?
No, he didn't tell me at that time. But
No?
I knew that Prestige was the one selling the vehicle.
Yes, they were the ones advertising it for sale.
Yes.
So Mr. Said Perdomo would have made whatever arrangements he made with Prestige for the sale of the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
You're not aware of what
No,
those
I
arrangements
wasn't
were?
aware.
Do you know to whom the vehicle was sold?
No, sir, I don't.
You know for how much the vehicle was sold?
I don't know. I don't know.
You know how much it was advertised for sale for?
I didn't check on that, sir.
You didn't see the ads on the internet?
No.
No?
No. The only thing that I saw was the pictures that Mr. Perdomo had sent to me, and it had the Prestige sign on the license split.
Yes, yes.
That's what he sent to me because he had some detailing to do on the vehicle,
Yeah.
and he was made to mention on that.
It was listed for sale for in excess of $80,000, right?
Well, I wouldn't know, sir.
You don't know. You weren't concerned
All I
with
know
that.
is that he told me that he would have tried to get the $65,000 for it, and if he couldn't, there would be a charge of 10%. I think 10% to the sale of the $65,000 if he wasn't able to get more on it. I said, you know what? Mr. Jovencio asked me just for the $65,000. As long as he gets that back, that he has no interest in how much you make.
Mr. Perdomo informed you that the vehicle was sold at one point in time?
Yes, he did, sir.
When was that?
He informed me on the 16th of January that the vehicle was sold.
And the payment of the price?
On the 16th of January, he called me that he needed to do the transfers of the documents from Mr. Jovencio to the buyer. And that's as far as I know. I gave them that information. Then on the 20th of January, sometime around the 20th of January, Mr. Said Perdomo called me and asked if I had the extra key for the truck. I said, yes, I had it. So he said he was going to drive to Orange Rock to pick up the extra key from me.
How is it that you were in possession of the extra key?
Because when I locked the vehicle, I took the 2 keys. In case I lose one, I have the other key.
So when you collected the vehicle from the parking lot of the Ministry of Natural Resources, 2 sets of keys were in the vehicle?
No, sir. I got it from his secretary, the minister's secretary at the time.
You got 2 sets of keys
Yes, sir.
from Minister Hugo Pat's secretary?
Yes, sir.
What's her name?
Miss Lupe. Miss Lupe.
Lupe?
Yeah.
Miss Lupe. So Miss Lupe gave you 2 sets of keys for the vehicle?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And this was on the date that you collected it from the ministry's parking lot?
Yes, sir.
So on the 20th January, you delivered the 2 sets of the
other set. The
other set of
other
key
set.
to Mr. Perdomo?
Yes, sir.
And did there come a time when Mr. Perdomo brought the money, the purchase price to you?
When he came to me, he said, Mr. Leva, I've been trying to call Mr. Herrera, and he's not picking up his phone. And I was not able to pay him because the check that they paid in was not cleared at the bank at the moment.
Sorry, let's get that right.
Yeah.
Mr. Perdomo gave you a check?
No. Mr. Perdomo said he was not able to pay Mr. Herrera in Belmopan at the time when they did the transfer because the check was still being cleared at the bank.
The check from the buyer?
From the buyer.
They received a check in
Yes.
payment for payment of the car?
Of the car, yes.
Are you sure about that?
Well, that's what he had mentioned to me.
I think that was just a internal bank transfer.
I wouldn't know, sir. I know that that's what he said to me. I didn't get into those details.
You didn't?
No.
All right, so he told you about a check that had to be cleared.
Had to be cleared, and when he went to pick up the key, he had the cash with him. And he said he was trying to call Mr. Herrera, but he was not picking up, and if I would see Mr. Herrera anytime soon. I said, I'm not sure, and he asked if I would be able to deliver the cash to Mr. Herrera. I said, well, let me try to call Mr. Herrera first. I tried to call him, he didn't pick up, and that's when Mr. Said said that Mr. Herrera told him that if he was not able to contact, to give me. And since I know Mr. Herrera, and I was the one who had assisted in the sale with Mr. Said, I had no hesitation to take it as long as I knew that it came from a banking institution.
So Mr. Perdomo delivered $65,000 cash to you?
Sir, I didn't count the cash. I just received it in an envelope. And just as how I received it, I gave it to Mr. Herrera.
Were any receipts issued for the cash?
No, sir.
No receipt. It was just handed over.
Yeah, I just handed the envelope.
And after you received the cash, you took it to Mr. Herrera?
Yes, I took it to Mr. Herrera.
When was this?
This was, if I'm not mistaken, around the 22nd or 23rd of January. In the ending of January, put it. Something around that time.
Okay. Do you know Mr. Kelvin Lee?
I don't know him personally, but I know who he is.
You've had occasions to deal with Mr. Kelvin Lee as Deputy Commissioner of Lands in National Estate Section?
No, sir, I haven't dealt with him as...
Have you dealt with applications by Mr. Kelvin Lee to lease and purchase national lands?
If I can recall one instance, I saw his name on one of the applications.
Only one instance?
Yeah, one instance.
Weren't there many instances where he applied and were
Sir,
approved for purchase of national lands?
I'm not the only one who vets applications and recommends to the commissioner at the time. There are individuals that...
All right, how does that work when a deserving Belizean walks in and applies to buy government land?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Okay. Each minister has their different styles and policies on how they want to work. Would you want me to say under Minister Spat one?
Each minister has different what?
Policies.
Different
Verbal policies, put it that way.
verbal policies. All right, what was Minister Pat's verbal policy?
Each applicant who wished to apply for a parcel of land would need to get a recommendation from his or her area rep. They would walk in with that recommendation to the front desk, make the application, then it goes for scan.
Is the recommendation from the area rep a legal requirement?
It's not a legal requirement, sir.
It's a political one?
I wouldn't know, sir.
All right, so they come in with the recommendation from the area rep and they fill out a form to apply.
For a parcel of land. The
Yes,
recommendation...
apply to lease.
On instances, people could apply for a permission to survey. They could apply for a lease. They could apply for a lease certificate. They could apply for a purchase. And then they could apply for their land certificate.
Okay. What's the verbal policy on the approval of multiple parcels to a single individual?
There's no policy in regards to that, sir.
No policy. And as far as you're aware, or as far as you can recall, you only saw one application from Mr. Lee to buy government lands.
You see, sir, the system?
Yeah, I'm aware. As far as you're aware,
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, yes. I only recall seeing one.
you only recall seeing one. And that parcel, do you recall the parcel that you recall seeing the application for?
Yeah. It was one in San Pedro.
San Pedro. Does the ministry facilitate the direct transfer from the government to third-party purchasers from persons to whom approvals had been made to sell government lands?
Repeat the question again?
where the government approves the sale of government land to an individual, and that individual turns around and sells it even before they've received the title. What's the policy of the ministry in transferring the title directly to the third-party purchaser?
There's no policy in regards to that, sir.
Is that facilitated at times?
Yes, it is, it's facilitated at times.
Was that facilitated for Mr. Lee?
I don't recall. I have never seen.
You've never seen
Yeah,
that?
I've never seen it under his name or anything of that sort.
I have no further questions. Mr. Martinez?
Yeah, just with regards to the vehicle, you said you received the keys from the minister's secretary.
Yes, sir.
What's the policy, vehicle policy in the ministry?
Well, I can state under my section is that the keys to our department was held by the commissioner at the time. He had to the minister's vehicle, not to the minister's vehicle.
Yeah, so in terms of authority to drive the minister's vehicle, you didn't have, you had that authority?
As long as you have a green card, which
Green
they issued
card.
out, then you can drive.
Okay, so at any point did you had any interaction with the Ministry of Vehicle Care Unit?
No, sir. No, sir.
None.
No, sir.
So we take a government vehicle and drive it to where it has been sold, and no interaction with the Ministry of Finance Vehicle Care Unit in terms of handing over the keys.
No, sir. At the time when I drove the vehicle, it was already a private vehicle.
Already a private vehicle.
Yeah, it was already a private vehicle.
I want us to get a good understanding on how we acquire, an ordinary Belizean could acquire land from the Ministry of Natural Resources. We're trying to find that out.
Okay. Like I mentioned again, the different ministers come with different verbal policies. Minister Pat's policy was that you get a recommendation from the area rep or the caretaker. This new administration does not require you to get a recommendation from any area rep, right? You take that application, you go to the front desk, you apply for that parcel of land. It then gets to be scanned in the system. When it's scanned into the system, it's vetted. Remember, there are different applications that one can apply for. One is a permission to survey, a lease certificate, purchase, and a title. Those different applications happen separately, right? And it needs to be vetted by the inspectors to ensure that the boundaries are demarcated, taxes are collected by the government, to ensure that the applicant is Belizean, to ensure that their social security is valid, and to ensure that the tenure of that specific parcel is not being infringed by someone else. It's then passed on to me for review, and not only myself, because there are two other people that vet applications and recommend to the minister at the National Estate section. You see, we at the time were met with a lot of backlog, and we had current applications. The backlog, we tried to ensure that we worked it out, and the current, we tried to ensure that it does not create another backlog. So we tried to be as efficient as we could at times. And to my level, I only recommend to the commissioner, and then the commissioner recommends to the minister. After the minister approves the application, it's sent down back for it to be scanned and show that the minister's signature is on the application. A letter is typed, and it's sent for the account to be opened. And then someone else signs those approval letters to be issued out to the person.
So that's a very long process. It's not it's not as easy as we would think. Long process.
We have had this mobile outreach program from October 2019 to November 2020, and where the ministry goes out to the people. I think we have heard that the new minister here is doing it at this moment too. And people used to get it in one day. All those people that came to the mobile outreach project, it's like we're taking the lands department to them. The commissioner whose signature is out, it needs to be on that file. The minister's signature who needs to be on the application is done. So I'd see that people can get it on those outreach programs. People who had medical attention always came to see, and we used to facilitate those to them. People who wanted financial assistance for educational programs, we assisted people like that as well. So on certain occasions, yes.
Explain the express process.
The express process is that you go, and if you want to facilitate, you pay a $500 fee. And sometimes I don't even see that it finishes in one day. You understand? It finishes within 2 days. But you pay that to the government, and they try to expedite your application during that time. You pay a $300 fee, you might get it within 5 days. That's the process. But it's not done at the national state level, only at the registry level.
So normally it's not done in one day. It would take more.
I know that it was a system that they tried, and at times it wasn't working, and at times it worked.
When Mr. Lee acquired this property in San Pedro, was this express service available?
No, sir, because the one that I recall was the national land, and it didn't happen in one day.
So it wasn't.
Didn't happen in one day. Didn't happen in one day.
All right, no further question.
Mr. Blake?
Mr. Leiva, you made a note that you received the cash from Mr. Perdomo. No receipt was issued to you, and you didn't count the cash. Is that a normal practice that you do, receiving large sums of cash without checking it?
No, sir, it's not a normal process I would do it. As a matter of fact, it's the first time I do something like that.
So I take it that in your normal course of running your own apartment building, you issue receipts and you receive cash, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, and you're in the habit of issuing receipts. So
Yes,
why
sir.
not request a receipt on this occasion?
Sir, you pointed out two things. One, the apartment is mine, so I need to ensure I take care of my finances. The other one is for Mr. Herrera. When he opened that, I really didn't want to infringe and count anything or put my hands on it. As long as I knew Mr. Perdomo got that check from the bank, that's one of the questions that I asked, and it was clear, then I said, okay, then no problem. If he didn't tell me that, I would not have collected that cash.
What difference did it make if the check came from the bank or not? You were receiving cash. You don't know the source of that cash, correct?
For FIU matters, sir.
Sorry?
FIU matters.
FIU matters to you.
Yes.
Okay. When you took the cash to Mr. Herrera, did you insist that he check the cash that you were handing over to him?
I just told him, here's the cash that Mr. Perdomo gave me. He can count it, and if he has anything missing, then he can contact Mr. Perdomo.
Was the cash in a sealed envelope that
Yes, it
could
was in a
not be
sealed
tampered
envelope.
with?
Yeah.
Okay.
No more? Thank you, Mr. Leiva. Those are the questions.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Cullen, in Manila folder there should be an oath made out in your name. Could you hold the Bible in the right hand and repeat the words of the oath, please?
I, Alfred Pal, swear, affirm that the testimony I shall give today before this commission in the matters in question shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Thank you. Could you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Alfred Kal, Senior Land Information Officer at the Land Information Center, Land and Surveys Department, Ministry of Natural Resources.
Thank you. And your address, please?
My address is 5460 St. Matthew Street, Belmopan.
Thank you. Mr. Kal, we had requested of the Ministry of Natural Resources and asked that they prepare a report showing all transfers of lands by Mr. or to Mr. Zurong Lee over the period October 2019 through November 2020. You prepared a report as to your findings?
Yes, I have prepared a report at the request of the CEO pertaining to the parcels of land that Mr. Lee owned. The report contains information such as the amount of parcel that he owned, where are they located, the location, the sizes of these parcels, and also the dates that these parcels were acquired or transferred.
Do you have a copy of that report here, that written report?
Yes, I have a copy of the report.
Yes. Do you wish to make it available to the Commission formally? Yes, thank you. But before you do so, Mr. Kal, can you take us through the report, tell us what your findings were and explain it?
Sure.
Could we look at the one dated February 18, 2021 first?
Let me just get my documents here.
Yes.
Okay, yes, I have this report dated February 18, 2021.
Do you wish to read that to us or summarize your findings as best you can?
Okay, so based on this research, the findings are as follows. Again, a parcel table was developed showing again the different fields for example, the parcel ID, the location where these parcels are, where they were acquired from, if it's from government of Belize or from third party, the dates of these transfer. So the findings are as follow. The research shows that Mr. Lee owns or has title to a total of 36 parcels of land all over the country of Belize. However, 23 of these parcels are located in San Pedro, Belize district. And I provided a table here that shows the number of parcels that he has. Again, the total is 36. But between October and November 2020, 17 parcels were acquired by Mr. Lee. So from the supporting table, which is attached, it shows a total of 17 parcels acquired by Mr. Lee between October and November of 2020. And again, this was highlighted in the table. If you look at the green color, those are all the transfer that are done or the land that are acquired by Mr. Lee within those 2 months. So 11 of the 17 parcels acquired within those 2 months are in San Pedro. Out of these 11, Out of these 11 parcels in San Pedro, 4 of them were acquired directly from the government of Belize. But as well, there are third transfer parties, meaning he didn't acquire it from GOB, but from someone else. So those are what we call third-party transfers. Again, the report shows that based on the information, again, the information that I used to prepare this report is the land folio system. The land folio system contains all records, all information from the beginning. For example, if you want to apply for a piece of land, it records when it was received, when the application was received, and until its full completion. So all of those records are digitalized. It's in a system that you can access. So based on that system, I was able to generate this report and show that the parcels that Mr. Lee acquired. So in total, there's 29 transactions for Mr. Lee in 2020. And again, 12 of that is entire year 2020. 12 of those transactions are direct transfer from GOB. 17 are private transfer. And however, 13 of those transfer owners acquired land previously from the government of Belize and then transferred to Mr. Lee. So what the record is showing, based again on the system, is that third party acquired the land from the government of Belize, and then it shows that these parcels are transferred to Mr. Lee. Again, this research shows, again, it's a total of 36 parcels acquired by Mr. Lee, that is for the entire country, and 8 are previously or privately owned parcels that are transferred to him. And this means that these are not acquired land from the government of Belize. So in a nutshell, my findings is, again, based on the record here from the land folio system within the month of October and November, 17 parcels were acquired by Mr. Lee, and these are both from third party and government of Belize.
What about the date duration of transfer field, Mr. Carl? What does that show?
The date of transfer?
Date/duration of transfer field on the table.
Okay, the date that is shown on those, again, this is based on the system. The system records when this transaction started and where it ended. So it shows when the transfer started and when it was completed.
Yes, and what does it show in respect of the parcels to Mr. Lee?
Well, in respect to the parcels of Mr. Lee, I would have to find that.
Do you have the report?
The table.
Do you have the report?
I have the report. Yes,
look,
so the report
look at the 4th paragraph from the bottom.
Okay, we're on transfer, or say, okay, so yes, so what the data is showing is some of these transfer are done within the same day.
Yeah, how many of them?
Let's see. I think there is I think there's 11 of them.
It says 11 of the 29 transfer transactions conducted in 2020 are completed on the same day. Is that what you reported?
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. You have a difficulty saying that?
No. I'm just I'm looking for my table, I think I misplaced it somewhere. But the report, yes, this is the written report.
Yes.
What the table actually shows the dates of those transfers. Yes.
Yes.
So,
You found that surprising that 11 of the 29 happened on the same day?
well, it is, I mean, I'm not in a position to answer if it's surprising for those transactions to happen in one day. I think the Register of Land would be in a better position to answer that question.
Yeah. Well, look at the second paragraph of your report. Do you wish to resile from that? It says, based on these findings.
Okay. Yes. So, based on these findings, it is safe to to say that Mr. Lee seems to be a very influential person, and based on that, well, the data is showing that probably he has some assistant
From inside the
from the Land and Service Department. Yes.
You have difficulty saying that?
No, no, there's no difficulty saying that.
You say under normal circumstances, the type of transaction would take 2 to 3 months to complete.
Again, based on data, if you look at the table, if you go back to Mr. Lee's transaction a few years back, there are transfers that he has completed in 2017, 2018. And if you look at those dates, it will show you that those transfers take within 2 to 3 months to complete.
Yes. But there were 11 of the 29 in the year leading up to the general elections that were all concluded in one day.
Yes.
You also prepared a report on sales by Mr. Lee, did you not?
Yes, I did.
And what were your findings? What period did you search and what were your findings?
Well, the report period is for, again, the months of October to the present. So a search was done to look at the month of October, November up to present to see if there are any transfer that are being done by Mr. Lee to any third party.
Yeah.
So
what did you find?
So what I found is there are 3 ongoing transfer by Mr. Lee. We have parcels 8483, that's San Pedro, parcel ID 7-428483. That is San Pedro, and that is being currently transferred to Sweet Paradise Limited, Coconut Drive, San Pedro Town.
And what's the price stated in the transfer?
The price stated in this transfer is $70,000 Belize dollars.
Okay. What else did you find?
There are other transfer again. So this one this parcel is a direct purchase from the government of Belize, and this is the parcel that's been transferred now to Sweet Paradise Limited.
All right. Well, do you have a file for that purchase?
Yes, I have a file for that purchase.
Can you tell us how much Mr. Lee bought that land from the government of Belize for?
Okay, so based on the information again from the land folio system, it is showing that the land was bought for $2,000 Belize dollars from the government of Belize.
Who signed that transfer in favor of Mr. Lee on behalf of the government of Belize?
Well, again, the record is showing here that it is signed by the former Minister of Land, Mr. Hugo Pat.
So it was bought from the government of Belize for $2,000, and it's now being sold by Mr. Lee for $70,000.
That's what the record is showing. That's what is in the
Yes.
system. Yes.
Yes. What about the other parcels, the other 2 parcels being sold?
There are other 2 parcels being sold or being transferred by Mr. Lee to. So these 2 parcels are 8670 and 8667. Again, both San Pedro parcels. Both of these parcels are currently being transferred to Israel de Jesus Barrientos of 1607 Flying Fish Street, San Pedro Town. And again, the cost that they stated is 25,000 Belize dollars.
25,000 each.
Yes.
Yes. Do you wish, you have a copy of that report for the commission?
Yes, I have a copy of the
You
report.
wish to leave that with us as well?
Sure.
Thank you. I want confirmation, Mr. Carl, the direct purchases from the government of Belize by Mr. Lee. I think it's 11 of them, is that correct?
Yes, there are 11.
In the past year. Were they all signed by Minister Hugo Pat? All the transfers to Mr. Lee?
Yes, again, based on the information and the system,
Yes.
all of this transfer
Well,
as shown on the...
You have copies of the transfers?
I have copies of the transfer, and they are signed, yes, by the
The
former Minister of
Naturally.
Lands, yes.
Yes. That's not unusual in any way. The Minister of Lands would sign all transfers, wouldn't he?
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
He's the minister, so he has the
The final say.
final say.
Yes. All right. Did you bring files for us for the 11 direct purchases from the government?
Yes, as requested, I have
Yes.
I made copies of these transactions and these information that I used to generate my report. So yes, those are.
And you've brought them for us?
Yes, I brought it.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions, Mr. Khan. Mr. Okay, Mr. Martinez?
Mr. Carl, can you identify what role Mr. Leiva played in these transactions?
I cannot see what role Mr. Leiva played in this transaction. Again, the Landfolio system is designed to track these applications, but it doesn't show, like, for example, who are actually assisting or who are, what role each staff is playing in the processing of this application. But the records are there that shows the application of the file, when it started and when it was completed.
Yeah, so in your report you said that it seems that he has influence, he's a very influential man. Would you say that to employees in the Ministry of Natural Resources, with employees in the Ministry of Natural Resources?
Well, that is a statement that is based on the record that is shown, so it would seem that, yes, probably he has some kind of assistant.
Like at what level though?
Again, I cannot say at what level he has assistant. I am not involved in the processing of this application, so I'm not sure at what level he has that kind of assistant.
Yeah. All right, thanks.
Mr. Blake? Nothing? All right, thank you, Mr. Cull. We'd appreciate the documents you have for us, and thanks for your assistance.
Okay, sure. Thank you, too.
Thank you.